Brad Klippert, running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District in 2022. After 34 years of military leadership service, flying helicopters for the Army for 20 years, and over 28 years of law enforcement service, currently now working as a Sheriff's Deputy for the Benton County Sheriff's Office, previously for Pierce County, where I received and was honored with the Medal of Valor, and now 14 years of service in the Washington State House of Representatives with a record of successful performance in the Washington State Legislature. I come before you running for Congress. So there are 19 questions the Okanogan County Republican Party has put forward to every candidate. So my wife Kim is going to read those questions to me. I'm going to give you my response, and we're going to try to have this done in 30 minutes or less.
So Brad, what do you see as the proper role of the federal government?
Ladies and gentlemen, the proper role of the federal government is to serve the people. If you read our U.S. Constitution, the first 3 words are "we the people," and then they wrote the 10 amendments, which is called the Bill of Rights, to protect the citizens from an out-of-control tyrannical government. So the purpose of the federal government is to serve the citizens of the United States of America.
So a budget bill is presented to Congress with little time to read or amend. It contains a great many worthwhile projects, including some that benefit our local area. Its costs exceed the expected revenues by about $200 billion. Explain why you might vote for or against such a bill.
Thanks, Kim. So did you hear that? The cost of this budget exceeds our budgetary allowances or our ability by over $200 billion. Would I like to vote for something like that, seeing how there's projects that will serve the 4th Congressional District? Of course I'd like to, but one of the things that I'm running for is to get a balanced budget in the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, we keep getting farther and farther in debt, trillions of dollars in debt, and that must come to an end. So we need to work towards a balanced budget and getting this nation out of debt.
So, how do you feel about the federal government dispensing grant monies to various jurisdictions?
So as long as those grant monies work within a balanced budget, I support that, because a lot of grant dollars can work well and serve well the people of the United States of America and our congressional district. But those grant dollars have to fit within a balanced budget.
Okay, should Congress pass laws or the executive branch promulgate rules that require vaccination? More generally, how should we strike a balance between the need for federal regulation and the importance of individual freedom?
Ladies and gentlemen, the very most important thing about the United States of America is we believe in land of the free and home of the brave. So although sometimes federal regulations are important to protect the people, those regulations must not so overrun the people that they take away our individual rights. So we must always protect individual rights. That's why our founding fathers gave us the Bill of Rights, so that we can in fact protect individual rights. So one more time, sometimes federal regulations are important, but we got to make sure that we protect the rights of the citizens, the individual rights, and that's why our founding fathers wrote those Bill of Rights, to protect the citizens from an out-of-control or tyrannical government.
A UN treaty on academic response is being proposed. What are your thoughts?
So tell them one more time, what was that first word? First 2 words.
A UN treaty.
A UN treaty against what?
Epidemic response.
Okay, so they're talking about a United Nations treaty against epidemic response, or for epidemic response. Once again, we need to protect not only individual rights, but we need to protect the sovereignty of the United States of America. Biden has entered into treaties or agreements with other countries around this world associated with climate change. Those are treaties that President Trump got us out of so that it can protect U.S. sovereignty. So ladies and gentlemen, I would be opposed to such a treaty, because we must always, always, always protect the sovereignty of the United States of America.
The U.S. Constitution and state enabling acts prohibit federal ownership of extensive properties. Can you suggest a practical path to transfer federally controlled land in western United States, not including national parks and monuments, to state jurisdiction? And what might be the outcomes of such a transfer?
So the transfer of federally controlled lands, not to include national parks and the like, but a transfer of federal lands to state property is important, and we can do that. But even more importantly, one of the discussions we've had since I've been a state legislator is that we would transfer ownership of those federal and or state lands to private ownership. Because right now those lands are not taxed in any way, shape, or form, and we, the people, are missing out on revenue that we could acquire if in fact the transfer of those lands were to private ownership, because then those lands can be taxed to the private owners, and those private owners can use those lands to prosper, to produce income, to establish jobs and businesses for our America. So even more important than transferring federal lands to state-owned land, if we can transfer some of those lands to private ownership so citizens can grow and prosper with those lands, and we, the people of the United States of America, can then increase our revenue and prosperity through the transfer of those lands to private ownership.
So what management policies do you support for federal lands, i.e. grazing, mineral rights, logging, fire control?
Okay, so we talk about control of lands. So one of the things, grazing, as we allow our cattlemen to allow their cattle to graze on federal lands, you know what that prevents? That prevents wildfires. Because wildfires spread across the low tinder that's on the ground, and cattle, when they graze our federal lands, actually eat that tinder, those dry grasses. So proper grazing management is a good thing for our federal lands. Let's talk about our forests. As we properly manage our federal forests and allow timber industry to harvest them properly, once again, that produces revenue, produces jobs in the United States of America that we haven't seen for decades. And every time I drive through the 4th Congressional District, I pray over those lumber mills that used to be filled with logs that have been shut down for decades because of a stupid owl. And we need to once again open those federal lands to harvesting of our timber, which will prevent wildfires. So we better manage our forests, and then we prosper from our forests, and we create jobs from our forests. So proper federal management is good, but it can't be overmanaged. We must allow our citizens to use those lands properly, so we properly manage them and keep them from wildfires, and use them for the people to grow and prosper in businesses.
How should the federal government be involved in education?
Federal government involvement in education. Education should be reserved for the states and for the local governments, for our school boards, our local school boards. Federal government should not be having their hands in the pot of educating our children. That is a job of the states and the local jurisdictions. So I do not support federal government being involved in our educational process. One more time, that's the job for the states, our local governments, our local school boards.
How reliably...
Consequences would be catastrophic. It must not ever, I say again, it must not ever happen. We must protect our dams. They provide for recreation, they provide for irrigation, they're good for flood control, they're good for transportation. We transport products up and down the Columbia and the Snake River, and we would not be able to do that in the same way if we took those dams out. And then one real quick thing. I was on a tour of the Snake River dams earlier this year. There were several experts from energy producing companies who were there. And I asked them, if we tear out these dams and then we ask everybody to plug in their electric cars at night, what will happen then? He said, we have no hope. That is unacceptable. It can't be supported. So ladies and gentlemen, I will, and you and I must work together to protect our Columbia and Snake River dams.
So what is your stance on climate change, and what action should be taken in response to that issue?
Ladies and gentlemen, today is April 15th, 2022. I was speaking in Moses Lake, Washington earlier today. My brother and I spoke there last night too, on the 14th. They had unbelievable snowfall on April 14th, 2022. This morning when I opened the shades at my brother's house in Moses Lake, Washington, there was snow on the ground. Kids were playing in snow-covered playgrounds at the schools. In the latest recordable snowfall in the recorded history of mankind. So, as a God-fearing, Bible-believing Christian man, I believe God controls our weather, not man. And this whole talk that our world is going to burn up if we don't all drive cars by 2030 is not anything that I espouse to. I believe that God controls our climate, not man.
America is sometimes welcomed and sometimes restricted immigration. What immigration policy does our country need to enforce at this point in its history?
Ladies and gentlemen, we must secure our borders. Our borders must be secured. I totally and complete legal immigration into the United States of America. I do not support illegal immigration into the United States, and those people who immigrate illegally into this country should be made to move back to their country and use a legal process to get into this country. I totally support the H-2A program, which allows people from other countries to come to the United States of America and work, create income for their families, support many jobs or industries in our nation, like the agriculture industry. Our farmers tell me we need a robust H-2A program that is supported so people can come and work here without being mandatorily paid overtime, because that doesn't work for the worker, it doesn't work for the farmer. So legal immigration only, and a very robust, perfected H-2A program I support.
How will you address the escalating drug problems affecting this nation and our now open border policy from the Biden regime? Do you believe this policy is an impeachable offense by Biden and his puppet masters?
Absolutely, positively impeachable. Drug overdoses at an all-time high. I have heard that right now fentanyl overdose is the #1 killer of Americans in the United States. And those drugs are coming through our borders illegally by people illegally immigrating into the United States of America. We also have a State versus Blake decision in Washington State, which is a state issue. It was voted on 5-4 by the Washington State Supreme Court, so that's a state issue, but still, we must fight back, and we must not allow this total propagation of illegal drugs in the United States of America, because it's supporting those drug habits is what's causing much of the crime rates that's going up in the United States of America, and many Americans are dying from overdose. This must not be allowed to continue to happen, and you and I are going to work against that to stop that from happening in the future.
So agriculture overall, orchards, wheat, cattle, grass, wine vineyards, hops are the largest revenue producers and employers in this congressional district. How familiar are you with each of these industries, and how will you be able to support and promote them?
Ladies and gentlemen, agriculture in the 4th Congressional District is absolutely, positively the greatest industry that we must support, and I support. I was born and raised on my dad's farms in Sunnyside, Outlook, and Granger, Washington. My dad grew asparagus, Concord grapes, mint, and we had pasture where we had cattle and horses like you see here in my pasture today. So strongly believe in, strongly support the farming and agriculture in the 4th Congressional District, and I really specifically want to protect our family farms. Our family farms are paramount, and we must protect them. And it's an industry that is, we feed the world. It's a huge revenue producer for Washington State. It's a huge job producer for Washington State. Agriculture must be protected and fought for, and we need to get the irrigation projects like the Cumberland Basin Irrigation Project completed so we can support our farmers with the water they need. And once again, we talked about labor before. Our farmers need to have access to quality, hardworking people in their industries. We must support that and help them make that happen.
So the timber industry was once a huge economic provider for Okanogan County and other timber producing counties from federal lands. It provided money to our county and state road maintenance and improvements, along with funding for our schools. Since Mitch Friedman's spotted owl landed, this industry has been stopped, leaving our federal lands burning up with annual wildfires. What steps will you take on a national level to try and change this ongoing problem?
Ladies and gentlemen, citizens' lives, human lives, are more important than owls' lives. And they have proven through research, we humans are not the primary predator of the spotted owl. It's the barred owl. So this whole protection of the spotted owl by not allowing them to harvest responsibly our forests is unacceptable and must be stopped. The day that happened, thousands and thousands of Washingtonians lost their jobs, and that's totally and completely unacceptable to me. I love our timber industry. I totally and completely support our timber industry, because if we do that, if we better manage our forests, we're going to have less wildfires. And guess what? Have you seen the cost of a home lately? One of the reasons why home prices are so high in Washington State is because they won't allow our timber industries to properly manage and harvest our forests. And if we once again get into our forests, properly manage and harvest our forests, guess what? All that timber, all that lumber will help to bring home prices down. So it's a win-win. We must fight for our timber industry and get it growing and prospering once again. And I can't wait to do that.
So what do you expect to accomplish by serving the upcoming term in the U.S. Congress? 2 years down the road, what will your constituents see that you have stood for?
One of the things I stand for is personal freedom. Land of the free, home of the brave. We once again must make our military men and women warriors, not woke. That's what we're going to work towards, making our military men and women warriors one more time, not woke. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to fight to make sure our elections in the future are protected from fraud and illegal, unconstitutional practices. So we're going to do that. We're going to get the Columbia Irrigation Project finished as soon as we possibly can. And ladies and gentlemen, we are once again going to seal our borders. We're going to finish that wall. We're going to protect U.S. sovereignty. And we're going to one more time become the land of the free, the home of the brave, and the most respected nation in this world, because we are going to stand up and we're going to be peaceful through strength. We're going to establish one more time peace through strength. We're not going to be weak in our military. We're not going to be weak in our law enforcement. We're going to empower our law enforcement to keep our communities safe once again.
So as an elected official, what can you do for your constituents that your opponents cannot?
So ladies and gentlemen, the one thing I offer that no one else in this election process so far that I know of who is running for this office is to offer to the citizens of the 4th Congressional District a man who has a performance record of success in an elected position. That being for me 7 terms of defeating a Democrat and being elected as the Republican representative to the 8th Legislative District. And if you look at my performance record, I am one person who has been recognized nationally and statewide with a performance record of conservative votes, fighting for the Second Amendment, fighting for personal freedom, fighting for free enterprise, free market. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I have to offer to the 4th Congressional District that no one else can offer, is a performance record of success, awarded success for doing the job that I have done as an elected official, serving you at the state level. I'm just going to take that same fight to the federal level.
So politics is a rough go. What principles and experience have prepared you to withstand the pressures, temptations, and complexities of national office?
Sorry to give you the same answer once again. Serving 14 years, 7 terms in the state legislature has prepared me for doing the exact same job, the exact same work at the federal level. I'm simply moving from the Washington State House of Representatives to the U.S. House of Representatives. I've got the experience, I have got the performance record, and I fought that fight and resisted those temptations and have been successful serving at the state level. I'm simply now going to take that same performance, that experience, to the federal level. Hey, God bless you. God bless your families. God bless America. We're going to win the United States of America back. You and I working together. Thank you. God bless you. How much time?
Did really well. 17 minutes.
Oh, not bad.
Not bad.
Mhm.